And a good Wednesday afternoon to everybody. Hello, hi, and welcome to the latest edition of ICB TV. It's a lovely sunny day here. It's throwing it down, wonderful rays of sunshine outside. I hope it's like that wherever you are. And I'm glad you've joined me today because I've got two of our members on who are coming to talk to us and me and you all about what they're doing and how they're coping with lockdown and everything else that's being thrown at them at the moment. So I have Kirsty, who you're able to see today rather than just hear the name, as she keeps telling me I haven't mentioned her name or anything else. And also coming up the rear there, we have Sue Bruland. Hello, Sue.
Hello.
Hi. With the, what is that? That's your company name behind. I thought it was Open University. Yes. I thought you were boasting, but anyway. So everybody, so that we know who's who. Sue, as you're up there at the moment, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do briefly, and so that we set the scene.
Well, obviously I'm a bookkeeper and I'm based in Shipston on Stour, South Warwickshire, and I have been trying to support my clients through this bumpy time, providing them with a lot of support, and I do bookkeeping for sole traders limiteds, and do a lot of stuff on Xero and Hubclock.
Brilliant. And Kirsty, how about you?
Hi, yeah, I'm based in March in Cambridgeshire, so about half an hour from Peterborough and Ely, sort of left a bit, right a bit, wherever. Geography, not my strong point. Yeah, bookkeeping, payroll, QuickBooks and Xero, basically. Don't touch the green one, I'm afraid, don't do Sage. Yeah, just business as usual here, I'm afraid. It's mad.
So you're both pretty rural then?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what sort of spread of clients do you have, Sue? I mean, just give us an idea of the sort of different clients you deal with.
Construction companies, I do a few, just trying to think, printers. Who else do I have? Sole traders in particular. So a lady who does dog first aid. Just quite a sort of mixture, really.
How about you, Kirsty? Similar?
Yeah, mostly sort of limited companies rather than sole traders. It's just the kind of position I like, and I do sort of hand over to an accountant at year end, but working towards that last exam. I will get there eventually. But yeah, mixture of clients, mostly within sort of March area, but a couple of sort of remote. One of them's down in Sussex. They used to be in Cambridgeshire, just outside Cambridge, and it's a charity, so a change of trustees and stuff. They moved the office down to the sort of Sussex area, but gained it because it was QuickBooks Online at the time, just as logging in as a remote access. So right. I moved them to proper QuickBooks Online, and it's fab. Love it. I've still got the client, and in fact the ladies in that particular instance is not there anymore. So I've got all kind of. It's interesting that how much the clients rely on us. They kind of go, how do we normally do this? It's like, okay, yeah, I can help you with that. And what happens with this? Yeah, well, this is how we've always done it before. It's not always the right way, or what, this is just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the best. But that knowledge of those clients is they do definitely rely on us as part of their team. We're part of maybe 20 teams, and an integral part, just a small part of lots of people.
Yeah, actually, across the board, that our members are really, really relied upon or lent upon, depending on which way you look at it. And even when people have been given their fancy bit of software and think they can all do it themselves, actually they don't. I mean, it's not what they want to do. I mean, let's be fair, you can't expect people just to want to do it because it can be done or they can do it themselves. And I think some of them will have a bit of a try. I remember years ago when I had a nice big lawn and I bought one of these little ride-on mowers, and my gardener was really upset that I kept using the mower, but I actually got fed up with that and I didn't do it. So, it's one of those things. So, Sue, you were saying that you've actually struggled with a couple of your clients. You've got one or two that perhaps might not make the day.
Yeah. Yes, it's been initially when this all happened, I got quite a few phone calls where people were distressed and worried and concerned about the businesses, and some there's an American term, pivot. So some have been able to pivot and change what they're doing to make themselves still a viable business in these changing circumstances. Some haven't. One lady who was doing dog first aid in face-to-face CPD courses is now doing that online, with which has been accredited by the CPD. So that's been a real interesting revelation, and interesting for her. Previously, her business was limited into how much time she had to deliver these courses, in particular at weekends, and it was a problem to get that moved over to during the week. Now, because of these circumstances, everybody is much more open to doing stuff online, and she's doing all her training courses online now. So when we do eventually go back to the new norm, whatever that is, she will be able to offer both. But I have got other clients who their business has literally just stopped overnight. So they will have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, we all hope, obviously, that all businesses survive. Some, unfortunately, won't. But I think when we come out of this, the general impression I get, and I think most people agree, is that it's going to be all hell let loose out there, because people are going to have to try and find more business, go back to old clients and make sure they're still around, new suppliers potentially. I'd like to think that we get a lot more supplies that are a bit more home-based. Because I think, you know, the UK, supplying to the UK seems to make a lot of sense from what I can see. I mean, Kirsty, you seem to be have a little different thinking on this, that you're busy. So does that mean that all your clients are just managing to scrape through?
Yeah, the barbers is closed and the pub's closed, but the rest and the florist is closed, obviously for contact sort of thing. But other than that, all the others are kind of carrying on. I've still got paperwork coming through the door, and emails coming in. But I think we've said before, as bookkeepers, we may not feel the impact for a couple of months until we're currently dealing with sort of March and April's paperwork, or sort of February, March. We're trying to scrabble it through to get our last back returns and things done. But that if the work's dried up in March and April and continues to June, we might not feel that till July and August. And I know it's being raised as a concern that by the time we feel the pinch, we may not be eligible for some of the loans and things that are available. So I don't quite know what the long term. I mean, I'm fine at the moment and still busy, but it's interesting to know how that's going to go.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has the answer there at the moment. We are still waiting. Isn't it Sunday now that the Prime Minister is supposed to be making an announcement as to what the plan will be? I don't think there's going to be a date on it, but he has a vision of what it's going to look like. We're hanging on at the moment, because obviously we normally have our conference in November.
Oh, yes.
And we're told that at the moment it is possible that those sorts of functions are not going to be allowed to run until into the new year. Or if they are, I mean, it's going to be a very strange conference if you've always got to sit 2 seats apart. I mean, that isn't going to work. That is the whole point of the conference, really. And I think the online Inspire Tour, as a rushed out effort, seemed to work very, very well, and we still
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we're all playing a bit by the skin of our teeth, aren't we? Really, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this daily program, we've been talking about doing one of these for years, and then talked ourselves out of it because we didn't think anybody wanted to listen.
I enjoyed it. It's like a daily fixture. 3 o'clock, fresh cup of tea. Love it.
Yeah, really good.
I think we might have to change the time if the kids are eventually allowed back to school, because you'll all be picking up kids at 4 o'clock or something or other. But anyway, we can do that. But yeah, because I mean, we get normally about 800-900 come to Inspire Tour. We certainly got that again this year. Conference, great conference, but 450 is probably about as big as we get actual members. By the time you add in a few exhibitors, you're looking at 600 people or something like that in a room, which is a fantastic feeling. And I love that sensation of talking to everybody and then being part of that. But the first email that I sent out saying that we were doing one of these was opened by 7,500 people. I mean, we just don't get an open rate like that normally. And we're just seeing people that we've not seen before. And with us doing now proctored exams so that you don't have to go to your centre for your final exam. I've just, funnily enough, one of the reasons I got carried away and didn't get in here quite as quickly as I should have done, I got in the skin of my teeth, was I was just reading the positive feedbacks. And one of them was from a lady in Scotland who says normally she's got 2 ferry rides and about a 5-hour journey to get to a centre. And she basically got up very early one morning, told the kids and the husband to stay out of her way for fear of death. And she's done her exam, and it's great. You know, she's got the results, she's got her qualification, and she's now, even in these times, ringing around her clients saying, "Oh, by the way, I can now do this." So I think that's good. I mean, how are you communicating with your clients now in these times? Has that changed as well?
Oh yes, massively. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I sort of sat down and analysed what I had achieved last year and what I was planning to achieve this year. And one of the things I wanted to introduce was Zoom to clients, because I was just spending a lot of time in the car driving from A to B to Z, and a lot of fuel and a lot of time lost. When I started sort of bouncing the ideas off a few clients, I was not, they didn't say no, but they were really cautious about it. And it was like, oh, what's this? And I didn't really get the feel that they welcomed it and thought it was a good thing to do. So I sort of put it on the back burner, and then of course this happened and everybody's doing Zoom now, and it has completely revolutionized the way I communicate with my clients. It's much less cumbersome than actually getting in the car and driving to someone, because you can sort of message them and say, are you available for a quick Zoom? Yes. So you have a 20-minute chat of whatever it is about, whether it's about a new loan that's come out or whatever it is, and it's just become the new norm, and I think people have got really embraced it, and it's enabled a lot of people to communicate a lot quicker, a lot easier with people than perhaps they would have done otherwise.
Do you think it's going to make us lazy? Are we going to be able to get back to visiting clients? Because I still feel that eventually people are going to want to see you and shake hands with you, or whatever it is they're allowed to do, or they're 2 meters apart. What do you think, Kirsty? Have you given up?
No, not at all. In fact, somebody came and dropped some paperwork in on Sunday afternoon, and it was really good. And while he was here and the laptop was downstairs already, I was like kind of carefully standing 2 meters apart. But while you're here, could you just sign up that new bank feed for that new company that you've just done? So we were chatting, and he handed over paperwork, and my hedge I just managed to cut. You know, so clients still do like to see us. I don't think we're going to lose that. But then my clients, as it's happened, are still, most of them are still local within my town. So it's not difficult. I haven't Zoomed with any of my clients. I have spoken on the phone more than I did. And in the beginning, I sort of did a few targeted emails to them, like, you might want the furloughed information, you might want the grant information, and tried to be specific to who needed what. But just going back to Summit briefly, because I'll be really sad if it doesn't happen, but just think how good next year's will be, 25 years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the only problem we're having is that because nobody's running anything this year, they're all being squeezed into next year.
Oh yeah.
And therefore, we've got our name down on about 4 different places. Because it's got to be big, it's got to be fantastic, it's got to be special. But everybody wants it, so we're being pushed a little bit for price at the moment. So what we can't do is go over the top, and you're not going to pay £1,000 a day just because we're having a conference. No, exactly, it didn't work. I didn't think it would somehow, but yeah, we've got to.
Does it have to be November though? What month did you actually start? When is your actual anniversary?
1st of November is our actual anniversary, and it will also tie in with the annual bookkeepers week, the raise a cup of coffee day, etc.
Yeah, the global, yeah.
Who knows? I mean, the problem that we've had over the last couple of years that every year we pick a particular month, and it used to be October, then it went to November, and whenever we do that, Xerocon always go and pick a week where we want, or we had the year before, but not out of any meanness or anything like that, but it's very difficult to compete with a multi-million-pound organisation like that. And then, of course, this year, Accountex cancelled in May, but they moved to the Wednesday and Thursday after the Monday and Tuesday, which at the moment we're down to do ours. So I'm not sure how that will work, but I don't think many of our members go to Accountex. I think they probably find it a little bit too accounting biased, a little bit too over the top.
Well, I heard you saying the other day that you might be asking if we can do a package for us to stay on the Tuesday night as well while we're there, because then you know there is a possibility that I actually I haven't been to Accountex before, and I was thinking about it this year. So you know,
well, we never know.
At the end.
So you get involved with all sorts of other things, don't you? You tell me, are you the deputy local regional chair or something or other for one of these big meetup groups?
Yeah, I'm vice president for the
vice president. Yes, okay.
for the Banbury BNI group chapter. So that's been really interesting, because obviously when this all happened initially, everyone was like, whoa, what's going to happen now? So we do it via Zoom once a week. And again, having that community of businesses. So yesterday, for example, there was a Zoom meeting where we focused on 2 members where their businesses have dried up overnight, to see how was brainstorming ideas as to how they can reinvent themselves and try and get new business in, which is a phenomenal network to be part of, because where else do you get that kind of support? So one lady does holidays, so holidays at the moment has dried up. And the other gentleman does catering, so again that's all dried up. Yeah, it's also a really good way of getting an idea of what is going on out there by what the members are saying, what they're struggling with, whether business is picking up, whether there are green shoots, etc. And just to have that business support is really, really good.
Okay, well, I'd like to we give you a bit of support, but anyway, we do our best. But it's not quite the same.
You certainly do. You certainly do.
I wasn't pushing for a compliment there, but I'll take one anyway. So, Kirsty, are you involved in anything else? Any one of these groups, or
no? Not outside of the bookkeeping. I tried a couple of the network meetings, but I kind of felt that it just felt, I don't know, maybe you have to do it more and more to get the real benefit from it, but it kind of seemed a bit of an expensive, not going anywhere type situation. It's the same, I've had the trouble with advertising, and I know Paula's in the presentation, she was saying about you have to do repeated adverts to make it worthwhile, but the only ones when I've tried it in a local magazine, but all I got people were calling me was to offer me advertising. I'm like, well, hang on a minute, that wasn't the intention of what I'm doing here. So I think most people have found me from Google search, you know, found my website and found me that way. But
yeah, I mean, I used to sell advertising. One of my jobs when I was a lot younger was selling advertising space, and yeah, people used to get so fed up with picking up the phone, and it's never a customer; it's always another rep from the paper trying to sell you advertising space. But I think the idea of little and often, as they say, is much better because the thing about advertising I always find is, unless you hit somebody on exactly the day and the week that they want your service, it doesn't help. But if you're there regularly and they think, now, hold on a minute, where have I seen somebody on? It must be in the paper, and they go to the paper and they will look. But yeah, I mean, it's that's the sales version of how it all works out. I think it is to a certain extent, but it's not as easy as it sounds.
I think in this kind of just the modern world, just, you know, by Facebook and whatever else, although I have a Facebook page, I don't tend to kind of promote it as such, but my friends in the normal world, they all know I am, and you know, they mention your name via various posts, you know, the local thing. Does anyone know an accountant? And they mention me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not an accountant, but yeah, thank you for the recommendation. You know, in the general world, people don't get the distinction, do they? But
no, I mean, do you get? I mean, you're Open Accounting House, so do you get called an accountant, Sue? Is this one of the
yes,
you get
yeah,
people?
Yeah.
I do.
There is, and I have been, you know, somebody actually did say to me, so what is the difference between you and accountant? Yeah, there is a lot of people sort of see it as an accountant, and it's not, it's a bookkeeper.
I had the same thing because mine's Kirsty's Counting Services, which I did it because it's my initials. But you know, when you have to spell it out with the you know, you kind of think of this thing at the beginning, and then it's only when you have to repeatedly spell out your email address, and it's like, no, there's no A, it's an S.
Yeah.
Difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the lines are becoming much more blurred nowadays, particularly with the government opening up FRS 105 and now into 102, 1A. And I think that provided we know what our scope is, what our boundaries are, then, you know, we are all virtually accountants. But it is only going to be to the micro businesses and to small businesses, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 million turnover. I mean, you could.
That's huge.
Well, I know, but it depends on the complexity of the business, doesn't it? Because, I mean, an IT company can be turning over 2 or 3 million with 15 invoices a year or something like that. It just differs every time. And if it's not complicated, we can do it. I mean, I think if people are going to want to float on the stock exchange and they're going to want to have different shares and all the rest of it, then obviously we take a step back. But for the majority of businesses that are family owner managed and led, I think we can do most things for them. And if not, I think we've got to be big enough as their advisors to say, that's a bit outside my realm, but I'll find you somebody who can help you.
Yeah.
And that helps, you know. And I think still, I would say still probably about 40% of our members deal mainly with a firm of accountants. So they do everything up to, and then very quickly and very happily hand it over to somebody else. But I mean, we've had the complaints ever since we started that accountants then charge more for a quick look at the books and a year-end set of figures than the bookkeeper does for 12 months. So you can argue both ways what's wrong, right or wrong with that. But so do you think that being where you are makes a difference? Do you think either of you would feel like this if you were in a city?
I don't know. I don't feel remote. I actually got one of my clients was from your job board, and I've still got them 4 or 5 years later. And another one I got from your job board in London. Didn't matter that I was up here because that was QuickBooks Online. So I had them for 3 or 4 years until she sold the business. So I actually don't think you know, distance has affected us at all. You know, it kind of, I appreciate watching Steve's AML presentations and stuff. That's the only point that makes a real difference. You know, we may never meet that client, and so from that point of view, there's a risk because we have to, you know, be sure who we're dealing with and, you know, be seen to be doing all the checks that we can. Which I again, another reason I like doing with limited companies is because I can do that research. I can see them on Companies House. I know who the person is, and you can track it through. But when you're a sole trader, I have to take them at face value that is who they are and that's what they're doing. And it's I find that slightly harder.
I think the thing. We're getting some sort of feedback for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, I think the thing is that we have to be sensible. And if you start to look into somebody, you Google them, you have a look, you make sure that their picture is the same and all this sort of stuff. You can do that. But I think you've got to have, you know, the person standing next to their passport, and then you know, you get that. You get to see the passport, you get to sign it, you get to know that it's you, you can check it out. I think the problem that we're finding with some of our members that are being lapsed, it's just that they're not taking the time to find out. It's not that they're specifically saying, I daren't ask the client, or I don't want to ask the client, or this is all too fussy. The big excuse we get is, I don't have time. Well, I'm sorry, you've got to have time. You know, you've got to have a tax disc on your car or whatever the company is nowadays. And this is one of those things we have to do, and it's for very good reasons. The billions that are disappearing through fraud and various other activities is just unnecessary, and we've got to try and help cut back on that where we can. But you know, we've got people who are taking on new clients now, and obviously they can live half a mile down the road, but they still can't see them. So we just have to find a better way of doing it, and that will do for now. I'd like to think that everybody sees every client at least once. But at least with Zoom, you can see if they're sitting in a nice factory or if they're sitting in a poky little corner of their houses. You know, you can try and get a feel for them and how they look and how they feel. I mean, I've always I've always said that, you know, we have about 80% of our members are women. It's the 20% I feel sorry for, because they don't have that third sort of eye that the woman seems to have always. You know, I mean, I don't know what it is. You know, I can't see a baddie a mile off. But, you know, June, on the other hand, you know, hasn't even met him, and she knows straight away whether they're right or wrong. So, so how do you use it? So, I mean, you know, you've been a bookkeeper for a while now. How do you get a proper feel for what your businesses are like?
Well, very, very fortunately, through my network, it's all through you know, relationships. I think seeing people on a weekly basis, as we do, a lot of my clients are through that network. It doesn't really come up. I've got one client who mainly works abroad. I've seen him a couple of times on Zoom. We were going to meet up just before the lockdown down in Oxford. That didn't happen. So I've got one potential client which I've still yet to meet face to face, but I've done everything I can to mitigate otherwise. But I really enjoy the personal relationships I have with my clients, and you don't, if you're at a distance, you don't get that personal relationship so well. And I think that's where you can really add value and make a difference, by having that close relationship, being part of the team, as you say, Kirsty, and adding value because of it. Whereas if you're just remote, sorting paperwork and doing it all remotely, and you don't have that contact, it makes it much more difficult.
I think it's really funny when you do go into a client a couple of times, you know, you go weekly or monthly, whatever it might be, and there's always, you know, the box file where they've put all of it, including all the scary HMRC letters that, you know, well, you deal with those, you know, anything that's remotely scary, give it to us. Yeah. But, you know, personally, I just love that kind of, that chaos bit, you know, that's and making it nice and tidy. That's kind of why I love my job. You know, I can't imagine doing anything else or working for anybody ever again. I'm spoiled having. I don't know about you, Sue. How long, you know, have you always worked for yourself or making that decision?
Previously, my husband and myself ran a business together, which again is unusual to husband and wife team. So I enjoy making a difference. I get a kick out of that. That's really the key bit for me. Whether it's what I did previously or what I'm doing now, and when you work closely with clients, particularly now because they're very financially sensitive, I think it's a really good opportunity to show the value that you can add to them, whether it's just giving them some moral support over the phone, or saying, have you thought about this, or what about that? That can have a big impact on them. That's the stuff that I love, and I just think they're very financially sensitive at the moment. It's a really big opportunity for us bookkeepers moving forward. They've got an opportunity now to reassess what they're doing, how they can change it, and reanalyze what is the right thing for them to go in to do and go in the right direction. And you can have a really important input on that and make that change and difference for them.
And do you think that you're going to find clients that now have decided, actually, we can work from home, we're not going to need an office? So again, that relationship will change, because you could actually be seeing people in a coffee house, or you know, in a serviced office, just so they get a meeting room, or at people's homes more. I mean, do you see that huge shift, or do you think this is just temporary while we're in lockdown?
I've only got one regular now in an office, who's obviously currently at home. The rest of them are I've never been to their local offices. They're kind of businesses run from their own homes in my town. So, so I don't know what Sue's mix.
I think there's going to be a big shift. I think there's going to be lots of companies that are paying expensive rents, leases for offices, and again, it goes back to what I tried to do in January, where I was met with a little bit of resistance to try and do more remote Zoom meetings. Now people have realised it really is doable, and companies can function and are functioning working remotely. ICB are a really good example for that. You know, everybody is working from home. No one's been furloughed. You know, I phoned up and asked for a couple of questions. and it works and it functions just the way as it was as if everybody was in the same office. I don't know whether Garry would like to add to that, but I do think it is going to change the landscape. I think landlords who have got properties to rent out, they're going to find it more difficult to rent their properties out to companies, just because there is more flexibility there. And whereby you've got big companies previously where they've had staff saying, oh, I'd like to work from home remotely, and for whatever reason the company has said, no, you can't, we need you here. Yeah. Now they're going to find it a lot harder to say, no, you can't do that, because everybody has.
Yeah, I think at ICB we just literally decided, as soon as they said close the offices, we thought it was safest to do so. We closed down whatever that was, early part of March, wasn't it? And we are fortunate we have a cloud-based telephone system, so we literally unplugged our phones, took one home each, plugged it into our routers, and we were up and running. And we staged it over 2 days, so actually nobody knew this was happening. I have to say our FD Julius absolutely loves this sort of stuff, so he was in his element getting everybody online and making sure they were programmed in. So yeah, we've got little lights that light up on the phone. I can tell who's on the phone, who's not. Everybody can be transferred through. And to most people, they probably don't realise there's a great deal of difference. And yeah, we're still getting people asking for their helplines. You know, as you know, we've got a technical helpline, an AML helpline, a legal helpline. Actually, we're getting more than ever on those, as you would imagine, I suppose. Exams was great for us because we took the decision a long time ago to go online for as much as we could, on the basis that at the end of each actual certificate, at each membership level, you'd go to a centre so that we knew who you were. But meanwhile, why put you to the stress and hassle of sitting in a hall and, right, you can turn your papers over and start now and all this sort of stuff. We found that testing online was easy anyway. We then thought that Pearson VUE centres were going to be a bit difficult, and lo and behold, Pearson sent us a little email one day saying, oh, by the way, we've closed. And I think it took us 5 days to get it sorted, but we've now got a proctored exam. Now, a proctored exam to me is a bit scary because you've got somebody looking at you through the screen and you've got your phone open beside of you that's scanning to make sure that nobody walks past and passes you anything other than a cup of coffee or something or other. So it does all of that in your own home. But I know the people who've taken it so far, and well, you know, we've had a huge number of people taking it. They think it's fantastic. And as I mentioned before, I've just been reading some of the feedback, and the lady that was on an island said that, you know, this is a whole day's worth of exam normally. And we've also, I've noticed, I mean, the branch meetings, you know, they're going now virtual. The numbers are up, but the thing that I'm finding really pleasing is that I would say that 20 to 25% of our members will come to the opening of an envelope. They'll do anything. They'll come to anything. They're always there. Same people, same every time, you know. And when we get a few new ones, now this sort of 75% that, you know, pay their subs, send in details every now and then. They communicate with us, but they don't come to much. We now know what they look like because they're on a Zoom meeting, and you know, everybody's running bigger and better branch meetings. I think when we come out of this, the branches will probably go, say, 50-50 or something like that. Because I think the other thing about bookkeepers is you're all actually quite social, and you want to meet other people and you want to talk about other people. Sorry, not about other people. You probably do, but I didn't mean talk about businesses and other people's businesses. So I think that will take place. But I think we've just got to keep our finger on the pulse and see what happens. But yeah, some of these people that I've been talking to for years, but other than their sort of passport photograph, wouldn't know what they look like if I fell over them, but all of a sudden I can see them now, you know, and that's great. And you can have this sort of conversation. I
had a few connections at my Cambridgeshire branch. We had one in April, so it was just as we were just into lockdown, so my AML got cancelled, and so it was just a kind of general COVID crisis talk. I did have a few new ones there. I think the time, I still did it at the same time. Mine were a Tuesday 7 till 9. But some of them said that they could get to it because they didn't have to arrange childcare and travel and cover and stuff, so they were able to come. But I didn't have a massive uptake on mine. I've seen other groups around the country have had I'm hoping to have more next time, maybe.
Yeah, I think yours was building up now. I mean, Mike Johnson from Bath is pushing everybody along. He's trying to break a record. We're trying to figure out what the record actually is, but I think he's up to about 47, 48 now.
Wow.
So, you know, he's really going for it. And I think, was it the Surrey branch got to about 60? So, yeah, I mean, it is coming on. What we are finding is people are going to other areas. So it's not just people that yeah, exactly. So, but so what? You know, if there's a good meeting on, why don't you go? So we can't say, well, no, you don't live in Shropshire, therefore you can't go to Shropshire's meeting or something. Well, that would be a bit unfair. But no, I think it's good. And I mean, we're all, you know.
As a chair, I found it interesting to go to a couple of other branch meetings just to kind of see how they run theirs. You know, I realise it's different to normal, but it was still easy enough to pop online for an hour or two and just join in. You know, just to have a chat with some different people. It's interesting. It's refreshing. But
I think members are generally the same, though, aren't they? Really, there's not a lot of difference. I don't know what you find, Sue, because you're in Warwickshire. I mean, Warwickshire hasn't always had a strong following on the branch meetings. It gets a bit mixed between Coventry and Birmingham and various other places. They're pulled in a number of different ways, aren't they? The sort of the Warwickshire people.
They are. Warwickshire's a very strange place to be. No, it's a lovely place, lovely part of the country. Joe, the last 4 meetings I haven't been able to get to, but Joe has done a fantastic job, and the Zoom meetings have really made a big difference being online, reaching out to more people. It's been growing from strength to strength, and there's a really good community in there as well. Of bookkeepers that are supporting each other, which makes a real big difference, keeping a group together and growing it.
I mean, we're trying to get a group in every single county, but I've been looking at several different versions of the current county map, and they're all different. You know, everything. There are now metropolitan boroughs. There are, you know, Birmingham has its own status, as does something like Telford. Well, Telford is Shropshire to me because that's where I come from. So it's still Shropshire, but no, it's different. And yeah, some of our girls in the office or at home now, you know, geography is not their strongest point. And I went on to try and help them out a little bit. And I must admit, I got completely confused as well. So Manchester's another one. That's got several metropolitan areas. And then I mean, even Peterborough is a unit by itself, isn't it now? You know, so it's really weird. But anyway, we're not quite there yet, but I think we will very shortly have everywhere covered. But we are finding that in the sort of Peterborough area now we've got people coming in from South Yorkshire, because that's not actually that far away, and Nottinghamshire. So Lucy's meeting, which comes off in a couple of days, I think it is, we've just been looking at them this morning to see where they're coming from, and they're coming from quite far afield. Most are local, homegrown, but others not. And one from Scotland. I haven't quite figured that one out, but you know, perhaps they've got, you don't know, you see, people might have relatives in that area, or they might have friends that they've met. What we're being told is I met those at conference last year. So the fact that they're 300, 400 miles apart doesn't really, it gives them a chance to see each other again, which is fantastic, really. I'm just looking, see, we seem to have got some one or two questions here. Chris Sparks says, hi, update on BBLS, funds received into account overnight from Lloyds, applied Monday PM. 1.036 billion pounds to 32,541 customers in the first 24 hours. I don't know where this guy is with all these big pockets, but somebody's going to have to try and help him fill them up again later. This is what worries me a bit.
That'll be us. It's our taxes that'll have to pay it.
Yeah, and we got the bookkeeping team here. It took me a while to figure out who they were, because on my screen here, I'm getting the bookkeeping and then ... So I knew there were the bookkeeping something, but it's the bookkeeping team. Anyway, so I do know that. We're always being referred to accountants. We offer pretty much all accountancy service to business owners. What do I say to them? You know, should we say, actually, Mr. Client, we're bookkeepers, but we do accountancy services? Yeah, I think so. I think you need to be careful they don't think you are a fully fledged accounting firm or accountants. We're not trying to pass ourselves off as accountants, but do not want to pick up clients and prospects in this every time we're referred to in this way. Faye, I've never looked for work from ICB job list. I have told contacts to search for a bookkeeper. I guess if you're not in, I guess if not in your area, you can get due diligence done from an accountant. Yeah, be careful with that. I have to say, we do find that we occasionally get tripped up with that because accountants do sometimes think they are a law unto themselves and they don't do the full due diligence. So we had a case recently. Well, it wasn't one of ours, but we saw one recently, and the accountant thought everything was okay because he met his client on the golf course. Turned out it wasn't okay, but you know, they have a slightly different regime for us. They are not. I keep having to go to accountants. I don't mean to. I'm obviously head of a bookkeeping organisation, so it's my job. But no, I mean, most accountants are pretty good. We work very well with them. Some of them, I think the thing is with accountants, you will see their adverts. They often say, "I will make sure I will save you money. The money I save you on your tax will cover my fees." And I think bookkeepers come at it completely differently, and that's why sometimes we don't quite see eye to eye when we're swapping over accounts at the year end or something or other. So that's that's right. That's great. Sorry, I have to keep reaching across to do that.
I've found with the accountants I work with that we sort of forthcoming with all the information when I've got it to trial balance and I've done what I can, and then quite often when they've done I see the client eventually pay some corporation tax, and in the meantime I'm kind of have been chasing the accountants for months going, can I have some journals, because we're nearly going to be doing another year end and it'd be really nice to tidy it up, or my kind of Xero or my QuickBooks bears no resemblance to Company's House, and you're thinking, well, someone we don't kind of ever get the feedback loop. That would be my problem with accountants, is that they don't seem to include us in now do this, let's do a double check. It's very much from us to them saying, this is what I've got, can you confirm, rather than them saying, this is what I want you to have,
Yeah, I think sometimes accountants do have some sort of complex, and they've got to share, they've got to be more forthcoming. And it does concern me sometimes that when a set of accounts leaves, it's very much black and white, but it looks completely different when the accountant gets hold of it. And we have to be sure as bookkeepers that it is just them doing things differently, not a question of them trying to help the client out by looking the other way or adding a few zeros or taking a few off. I mean, we have had some pretty head-on cases over the last 12 months. I think over the 12 months we've got about 700 complaints about accountants, but a lot of them were proper full-on fraudulent or other cases where people have falsified invoices and all sorts of things. I mean, that's the whole point of a bookkeeper. We see everything at first hand. Everything that we give to our accountant, if we pass it on to the accountant, is as it was. It shouldn't really need to be altered. But obviously they take into consideration far more on assets and, fixed assets and various benefits and various things that we don't do perhaps. But yeah, I think for your own sake, you need to make sure that you get that from accountants, and perhaps you say to them, look, I have to see this, I have to make sure that I'm happy with it, because I have to sign off to say that I'm happy with the accounts for my money laundering regulations. Otherwise, I have to say something to somebody. And do it like that. I mean, the good old money laundering regulations, they are a bit of a nuisance at times, and I know some people get very upset that we're constantly talking about them, and I do a lot, as everybody knows, but they are so important. And actually, it's done us as an institute a lot of good, because we've proved that we're good at this. We can do it. We've got members who are very diligent, and therefore we're up at the top table with everybody else, and never before have all of the professional bodies sat around a table anywhere, but now money laundering expects us to do that, and we do. So we're sitting there with somebody from Treasury and somebody from Bass and various other things. So yeah, we get as big a voice as everybody else. So thank you, all of you two and everybody else as a member of ICB for mucking down and doing this. Having said that, we do find that one of the biggest problems we have is that you all look after your clients very, very well, but you forget to do everything for yourself. And at the moment, we're using this as an excuse to sort of desk research everybody. We've got Jane Hardwick, who is our intelligence and investigations officer, is going through everybody's record. And she's tying that in with Company's House, she's tying it in with various other things. And you just don't tell us stuff. You know, the number of people that have become a limited company and have forgot to tell us. Does it matter? Well, it does, because the name on your license is wrong. You know, you're not covered. And they've taken on a new director. Oh yeah, but it's only my husband. He doesn't really work in the business. I know, but he owns half of it now. So you've got to tell us. And it's that sort of stuff, really. And lady the other day I spoke to, she hasn't looked at her anti-money laundering online stuff for 3 years. And I said, you haven't looked at it? Oh, well, I haven't had time. So you've only just got to check it through, but it's important. Those companies could have moved on a lot in 3 years.
But Gary, how come she's allowed to renew her membership when her AML isn't up to date?
Good question. I mean, to be honest, we're doing things differently nowadays to what we did. We have to be now a lot more assertive. I mean, if we look back at that lady's file, she's been told 3 or 4 times to get on with it, and she's used the excuse. Now we have, since the beginning of last year, got new powers, so that's what we're doing. I mean, I was reading through the rules last night because we're changing our sort of fine regime. We have to bring in fines now, so every misdemeanor has to have a fine allocated to it, and there are 3 levels of fine. If you tell us about it before we ask you, if you tell us about it after we ask you, and if you hide it from us. So there's 3 different levels, and we have to do this whole sliding scale. It'll be out in a couple of days. It's good reading. But yeah, but now, if somebody doesn't do that, we have to either fine them or suspend them. But they can't now just say, oh, well, that's all right, I'm going to go to so-and-so down the road, I don't know, one of the other organisations, because they're not as tough as you. Because actually, we're all supposed to be as tough now. And I think ICB, we felt for many years that we were gold-plating everything, but getting caught because people were just leaving us and going to one of the other organisations, you know, and we lost a lot of members. We lost about 600 members over 2.5 years because we'd asked them to do something. So they sort of gave us the proverbial victory sign and wandered off. They can't do that anymore. So that's interesting. But funnily enough, I was reading through the rules. I mean, we have literally got the ability to demand entrance and forcibly have entrance to a building to check somebody's records if we are refused. It's weird. I think we have to get a policeman to go in with us, but
that was really surprising that you've got more power than Companies House. That was really interesting the other day.
Well, we seem to have. I mean, Companies House are. I can't figure them out really. They don't check anything.
But that was really shocking.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, who knows? I always thought that if somebody had done something to Companies House, we could almost say, well, that's one tick in the box. But apparently, it's not. It's a question mark, you know. I mean, do you use Sue? Do you use Companies House a lot? Do you do searches that way?
Oh yes, definitely. Just not only to find out about the directors, who they are, but also whether they are financially viable, because obviously not necessarily you don't want to take someone on who is financially struggling. That's not necessarily the case, but you can normally tell when you start looking at Companies House and the set of accounts, you know, are they financially solidly sound, or is there sort of stuff on there where you go, whoa, no thank you. And also things like sort of I want to say credit reference agency. I don't mean credit reference agencies, but credit. I can't think of the name of the company.
Like Experian and those.
Yes,
ones.
yeah,
People
like that as well.
Yeah.
Just to back up what you've looked up at Companies House. And I just, the other thing that's I always think is very revealing, if you get lots of director changes.
Yeah.
Why is you suddenly got so many different director changes? Someone's resigned. It might be the type of business it is, but also it could be an indication that it's not all plain sailing.
I did find one the other week. I know you're supposed to, you know, if you're checking this company and you can check that director and what other companies they're in. But I did find a case where he happened to be on another company, but it was either spelt slightly differently or the address was slightly, I can't remember what it was now. And when you had the Companies House man on the other day, and I'm thinking, oh, I'll try and remember who that was and send it to them as an example, because somewhere that they should have been connected. And you know, it's only that I happen to know he's director of 2 companies, and why doesn't Companies House know that? You know, this is kind of, like you say, it's supposed to be our Bible. This is what I thought was the right thing to do, and it's quite shocking.
I think some of the systems are basically archaic, and unfortunately HMRC and Companies House don't link anywhere, it would appear, and therefore it's one of the reasons why we get a lot of the work to do. Having said that, I don't think it does any harm for us to have to do that, really, because if the business is dodgy, we don't want to be part of it. We don't want our reputation soiled, and we certainly don't want to have to fight somebody for money when it isn't going to be paid. But certainly now, one of the things we do, if any of you have got limited companies, we will hit on there to see if you've got any other companies. And as I say, as I've said before, we've come across one man who had 22,000 companies, most of which were Polish building companies. I'll say nothing. And you know, we found a lot of these, and we found recently somebody who was setting up businesses for people and taking a fee, but then having, you know, not worrying too much about who they were or what they were. And we know from what the National Crime Agency is telling us that people like that are absolutely, if somebody can find out about them, they are targeted by crooks. Because if you can get somebody who will set up a business for you, then on the strength of your bookkeeper or your accountant, they help you open a bank account. Next thing you know, you've got a bank account and you're trading. Money comes into the account. You see lots of invoices. You don't really know what they're for. Anybody can produce an invoice on a printer nowadays, and it goes through the bank and it's all done and dusted, and they're quite happy to pay their 25-30% annual tax or something or other, because they get 70% of it free, clean money all of a sudden. I don't think, hopefully we've got many people that have come across that. We've had 1 or 2 over the last 5 or 6 years. And as you know, we had one of our members who took to buying handbags with some of her clients' money. This is unfortunate. And we've actually, we've just got another one that's we're going through at the moment, where a member of staff took a substantial amount of money from a client. And so it's a question of controls as well. And I mean, now when you're employing people, knowing what they're up to as well as what you're up to, I think it becomes increasingly important because of what can slip through. Either they can let something through the accounts which you should be keeping an eye on, or unfortunately that they might be siphoning off. And I don't know how they got the nerve to do it myself, but so
it can be a real eye-opener, not necessarily to do with the anti-money laundering, but a couple of years ago I had my identity stolen. And when you have your identity stolen, someone very exactly how we don't know managed to open a bank account in my name and get 5 different mobile phone contracts in my name. Trying to sort that out afterwards was an absolute nightmare, and getting everything off my credit references was a real nightmare. It took me months to get it sorted out. So when you suddenly experience that, it does make you very, very wary as to how it could have happened and how it can happen to other people. So when you're looking at clients and what it says at Companies House or what it says on different credit references, it does make you very much more cautious as to whether it's legitimate or not. It opens your eyes a little bit more.
I mean, when we had our offices at Paul Street, we suddenly had a huge drop in revenue. And people were not renewing, and we thought, we've done something wrong or something. But as the renewal notices went out, or the reminders went out, people were ringing and saying, no, I've sent you the check. I've sent you the check. And it had been cashed. And we found, I mean, nobody's actually totally confirmed this, but we believe that a postman had been taking the checks, and they had a mate inside a bank, and they'd opened an account in my name for the Institute of 35 bookkeepers, and they were having the money. I think it was about £25,000 worth of money. Now, we got that back. Everybody was, but then it was hushed up. Nothing. We never heard anything more about it again, because people don't want the publicity. But when I've ever gone to open a bank, it's a heck of a task to do it. You know, I've got to have everything, inside leg measurement, everything. And how do they do it? But they open it up in, I can't remember if it was ICB or Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. It was one or the other, but I suppose ICB would be easier. But they were just cashing all these checks. And Yeah, and then occasionally we get a problem where when we're sending out membership cards, they go missing a lot. But I think that's because people think it's a credit card. So I think those things do happen, and we do have to continually be careful. But there are some horrible scams going on at the moment, of course, with PPE and everything, and we keep getting government saying, don't take any notice of this and of the other.
Yeah.
I guess you can get due to from an account. Can you please confirm what tax advice we can do? E.g., we're often asked limited or sole trade, which is better. We would weigh up the tax cost of each and suggest the best option. Is this allowed? Also, client sole trade incorporating. Are we allowed to explain how this works? Tax implications if we feel confident we know the answer. We have an ACCA employee on our team. I love that when bookkeepers are employing ACCA people. Tax advice that you can't do is helping people with investments and offshore schemes, not that anybody can, on that sort of stuff. Explaining to people what the difference is between limited company and sole trader, then that's fair game, providing you do know what you're doing. So I wouldn't go doing this unless you've done something equivalent to sort of the level 4 or something like that, where you are sure about that. But yeah, that to me, it's one of those phrases that can mean different things to different people, isn't it? Tax advice. But as long as you don't get involved with telling people what to do with shares or how to put their shares offshore or do anything like that, that leaves that to the Financial Services Authority. You need a license for that. But if you're saying to somebody, you should be better off if you become a limited company than this, and this is why, and just do a brief calculation, but always suggest that they take proper legal advice and don't just take what you're saying, because if anything does go wrong, you'll be the first person they come knocking on the door of. If you've got an ACCA man there or woman there, then it would appear to me that you should have that covered, because the ACCA sort of start at that level, which is where most of us tend to finish. I mean, we do have an organisation, a sister organisation, which some of you may know from looking at social media, called the Institute of Certified Financial Managers, and they tend to be based in Eastern Europe, where we were convinced many, many years ago that nobody understood the word for bookkeeper. Everybody was an accountant. So we changed the title. We have a lot of members over there. In recent years, they've admitted that they do have bookhalter, which is exactly the same thing, but they didn't know that that was the same. So we now they are members of ICB and they want to become bookkeepers, and we're doing that at the moment. So our syllabus goes through to level 4. Theirs goes through to level 8, I think it is. So if any of you really want to go mad and do all sorts of strange things, you can do. I mean, we've got the chief accountant and finance director at the Russian Atomic Energy Foundation, which we get hundreds of people from there, and they do even internal auditing, which is interesting. And we do a certificate on that, because one of the big problems they have is that there's a lot of corruption, or was or is or whatever, and therefore they need to test people on internal auditing, because the last thing you want is somebody making money and the right thickness of concrete not going into your next installation. So there's all sorts of strange things. It's quite an interesting life, actually, we have, all in all. But those of you who've seen ICFM Ukraine, if you're watching today, hi, Helena. They're a fantastic bunch, but they are more socially aware about us than even we are. She tweets everything and likes everything, so we get a lot of coverage. And everybody keeps saying, do you know you have bookkeepers in Ukraine? Certainly do. We're in 134 countries around the world, to be exact. And anyway, such is life. So what's next for you both? Are you both happy where you are, or are you thinking of doubling in size, staying as you are? Is it good enough as you are? What are your ambitions? Kirsty, I can see you're dying to say something there.
I was trying to be polite and wait for Sue, but yeah, I'll go. I've got my, I bought a book at Summit, and to follow up and finish off, I changed from the associate to the member, and apparently I've got some gaps there that I need to take a couple of exams to fill it in. There's some of the small limited companies that I deal with, I could probably do their year end, but I don't at the moment. I hand them over, but I feel that there is a fair bit of income there that I could do. And the self-assessment exam, I really need to get around to doing that. So, because again, I hand them on to colleagues at the moment, and that's obviously work I'm just giving away at the moment. So it would be nice to be able to do the whole package, but for the small clients. That's next for me.
I think if you've done the accounts, the self-assessment, as far as I can see, seems to be the next logical one.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying he's just switched to one of our members who now charges him £250 for his self-assessment, whereas he was originally charged £1,050. So he saved £800. But the member was sort of sitting there whilst we were talking, it was on a Zoom, and she got a slight wry smile on her face because she says it takes her about 40 minutes. But she didn't mention that till he'd gone off air. But anyway, so what about you, Sue? Where are you going next?
I've been reevaluating what I've been doing, how I set up. I went through a huge amount of growth last year. And to be honest, January through to February was just insane, the volume of work. So the fact that things are quietening off a little bit is a welcome change for me, just to sort of reassess where I want to go with the clients I've got. I've also got exams to do, which I am hoping the next couple of months to kickstart that again, to get those done, and come out stronger the other side, because I do believe this is a good opportunity to reevaluate what you've done, to work on your business instead of being in your business. Very much in January, February, I was absolutely swamped. I'm very, very tired and exhausted. And I was just being pushed along with the business. And I didn't really get any breathing space. Now I've got breathing space and I'm really looking forward to it.
That's brilliant, yeah. Jackie, we haven't got a thank furlough. It's Friday this week because obviously it's bank holiday. We'll remember VE Day. So we've got thank furlough. It's Thursday, which doesn't quite sound the same, but anyway, we've got that tonight. So Jackie's coming on. She's got a few updates, particularly on the nurseries and the situations there. She's had a meeting this morning with about 8 or 9, I think it was, of our members that know something about it, and she's going to be talking about that. She's also going to give us all the updates and what have you. But the reason I mentioned Jackie now, other than to get everybody lined up for tomorrow, is that she's on one of the HMRC panels, and she's upset the head of the panel a little bit because on Friday I think that she shouldn't release anything because it was all confidential, only to find out that perhaps other people did know about it, and Jackie would not upset anybody, but she certainly upset this man. Was sort of ready to throw his rattle out of the pram, but he's just been pounced upon by 2 of the sort of non-chartered accounting bodies. And I was reading the email that the one of them sent, and I make a joke at conference that some people will allow into membership people who can spell accountant, and everybody thinks this is quite funny. He couldn't. He spelled it accountant all through his email. So he is an institute of accountants. And I thought that sort of sums it up, really. Never mind. But the thing that surprised me was how old-fashioned they are, and how, our clients are expecting more and more of us. It's just not right. They'll regret it when they get the bill. I thought, really? That's not the way to do this, is it? If you should be there to look after your clients, but if not, give them a bookkeeper. That's what we do. That's it. I suppose if you're used to seeing your clients once a year when the accounts are due, and you then run right up to the 9-month mark, and you get them to sign it quick because we'll worry about it next year. Seeing people on a regular basis is perhaps a little frightening. But
yeah, I mean, they could be signing off, Boulder Dash accounts if they've not been, following it through every if they don't get the updates and things. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think they do rely on us to feed them the correct information, and certainly one of the accounts I hand over to them at the accountant at the year end, it's a very different process. Sometimes that they've looked at everything because of the random questions you get asked. What was this to do with that Skylanders lunch bag? And it's like, well, yes, it was on a receipt, but you'll see that bit went to private. The other times you get like no questions, and God knows whether the accounts have ever been looked at, and yet the bill's the same. 2 different accountants up the high street from me.
I mean, you've got to look at it. get trusty because they're an ICB bookkeeper, so that's it. I mean, I'd like to think that was it, and some do. I mean, we actually get quite a good press. I mean, the last couple of Accountexes, I've done a session with accountants, talking to accountants about using bookkeepers and everything else, and it's been a really packed out session. You know, they are very keen to work with bookkeepers, or at least be better at their own bookkeeping, because I think they see it as a major gap in a lot of the offerings that some of them have. But still, as long as that continues. So, well, let me just make sure we haven't got any last minute questions, because it's not really a question type thing, is it? Where are we? Oh, thank you for your answer on the tax advice. We've got that. That's great. And I'm not sure. Let's just make sure. Sorry to keep stretching across the camera here. One on the chat. Sue Haynes, are there any branch meetings for Nottingham? Well, Sue, you might ask. Yes, at the moment, some members from Nottingham are going across and joining in the...
Lucy had one from hers.
Meeting, yeah, and also the Northern meeting. But why don't you start one? I'll try and track it down when we've finished, and I'll see if we can get one going. I'll come on and start it for you. But certainly, yeah, we ought to. Nottingham was always a big area for ICB, and we've got a lot of members there. We used to deal through People's College at Nottingham, and we had hundreds and hundreds of students on a yearly basis. We haven't had a branch meeting there for a while, although we have had one of the Inspire tours, not last year, year before, I think it was. But yeah, we'd love to get Nottinghamshire going. Actually, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire, both very big counties for numbers of members, and for some reason, not quite that easy to get a branch going. But it is easy now. It's on virtual, so we'll try and get that sorted. And yeah, we'll do something for you there. And we've always got very willing chairs who are quite happy to talk about, you know, something or other in an adjoining county. They're pretty brilliant at what they do.
That's how I got started on my branch here. I remember talking to Ken Bell at Summit one year, and I said, look, how do I get to go to a meeting? I was, you know, in Cambridgeshire and, quite, as you say, quite rural. And Ken was like, well, if there's not one in your area, start one. I'll come along to the first. And 7 years later, or however long it is, that's how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, perhaps we shouldn't say that. People don't ask ever again now. They're never going to say again, how do I get a branch?
That's how we wrote Lucy in as well.
Yeah, but I mean, Sue, you've stepped back at the moment because you've been busy, so somebody stepped up to the plate for you, and I mean that happens over and over again, you know, and it's what we want to happen. We have in the past had one or two branches where, when the chair disappeared, they sort of took their ball home with them and left us in the lurch a little bit. You know, it becomes very centralised. But
well, Joe and I were joint chairs, and to be honest, I mean, Joe has done the majority of the work last year, and she's continued, and she's done a really, really good job. I feel slightly guilty, but no, she's fantastic, and it's really nice, as I said previously, to see the members that we've got. There's a good group, they're very supportive, and there's like a good community amongst us. So long may it continue to grow. Be fantastic.
Yeah, great. And actually, the branch network is one of the main sources of buddies, or whatever you want to call them, under the COPE, the continuation of disengagement. And we've had a lot of people actually falling back on that at the moment, because some people have got a husband and 4 kids that they hadn't had at home getting in the way in the past. All of a sudden they can't get out to do anything, or they don't have time with the screen, so they've relied on other people to help them out. So, you know, I don't think we put it in our list of possible reasons why you'd need it, that there would be a national pandemic. We didn't think about that one, but I think it's
quite funny hearing all the people talking and moaning about working from home. And I'm certainly watching my neighbours busy out in the garden all day, every day. And I'm like, working from home is you know, we do it all the time. What's all the fuss about? But adding in homeschooling has been slightly challenging to a teenager, but, you know, makes life
interesting. It is difficult. And at the end of my article in the newsletter last month, I said something like, you know, and don't forget, it's only last month that you were wishing you had more time at home with your family. I've had a few rude comments about that one, but nonetheless, it's, you know, be careful what you wish for. But so listen, ladies, thank you very much for coming along. It's been very nice to talk to you. It's nice to hear that, you know, we are getting through the struggles, and, you know, we're not saying there aren't people struggling out there. We know businesses, some of them are going to find it really tough. And as you've already said, I think both of you, that another month of this, and again, things are going to look different. But I think we've got to, you know, take a deep breath and be there for when it turns around, because they'll expect us to be there immediately and help them get through, because there's going to be a lot of business to be had, I think, when it gets out there. It'll be different business for some, but I think there's going to be a lot. So thank you very much.
If I can just interject, before I came on, my husband, because I'm now working from home, has seen more of what I do. So I said to him, so what do you think, what do you see what I do for what is my added value and what is the added value for my clients? And he said, it's easy. It's just one word for that. And I said, what's that? And he said, support. And I thought that was really interesting from him. And I think that is the key moving forward for everybody, whatever it is next month or 2 months' time, is support. Support your clients, and, you know, provide that support. And that's the added value.
And I think also recognising that, you know, for them it's kind of new and scary. Just because I've heard the word furlough 20,000 times today, to them it's like, oh, you know, I've seen the spreadsheets, I've done the thing, and to me it's just numbers and I can deal with it. To them it's like, and we have to remember that, as Garry said, that their mindset is gas pipes or, you know, drainage in 5 different colours. To me it's just a drain pipe, but no. But, you know, to me it's a set of numbers, and I'm happy with that. I like numbers.
And I think the thing is, we've got to remember exactly that the people we're talking to aren't bookkeepers. They don't understand bookkeeping, but they know that they've got to keep the books right for their business. But even when you've got the books right, if they don't understand what they mean, and about a couple of hours ago, I've just had our quarterly report from my finance director. Julius is a fantastic guy. I love him to bits. I don't understand what the hell he talks about half the time. I mean, he's just given me the fact that I think as the salaries in our organisation work out at about 55% of turnover. And he says normally organisations should be ranging between 47 and 52. So we're over. I say, how can you say that? You know, I mean, we need these people to do the work, you know. I mean, and the fact that I'm out 2%, you mentioned that in quarterly figures, go away. Look at something else, you know, that we've done properly. And, you know, these ratios and acid ratios and all this sort of stuff, great. But, you know, has the bottom line got brackets around it? No. Fingers up, we're done. You know, that
Has it just been on spreadsheets, Garry? Do you not like his spreadsheets?
No, he's now got a software package, and he's experimenting. Everything's coming out in graphs now. So, but yeah, I think, you know, we've got a great place to play. And the phrase that I don't like is trusted advisor, because actually accountants have taken that one on, and a lot of other people. You know, you see them; they get loads of money from standing up and telling you how to do everything. It's all very well advising, and we can, but what we do, as you've already said, Sue, is the support. It's all very well telling somebody how to do something. That's not the big point. The big point is helping them actually achieve something. And I think trusted achievers or something like that, I don't know, it's got to be a different phrase, but a trusted advisor really annoys me, because it's normally people who, you know, what does it say? If you can't do it, you teach it, and it drives me nuts. So, sorry, off another soapbox. I've got that many soapboxes here, you know, keep me going. All right. So, thank you very much, ladies. And
thank you.
Good luck
with
everything. And we hope to see you again soon. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow when Jackie's on. So, bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
See you soon.